Imagine living in a world where covering your body was a privilege you had to pay for. A world where refusing to pay could cost you your dignity or even your life. In the early 19th century, in the princely state of Travancore, India, women of the lower castes faced an unthinkable injustice: the Mulakaram, or breast tax. Yes, you heard that right. A tax imposed on women based on the size of their breasts, just to cover their chests. And if they dared to defy it? The punishment was humiliation, public exposure, or even execution. But one woman's courage sparked a revolution that changed history forever. Her name was Nangeli. Stay with me as we uncover this shocking story of oppression, defiance, and triumph. In the early 1800s, the kingdom of Travancore, now part of modern-day Kerala, was a land of stark contrasts. Lush greenery and vibrant culture hid a brutal caste system. Women of lower castes, like the Nadar and Ejava communities, were stripped of basic dignity. They were forbidden from covering their breasts in public, a practice enforced to reinforce caste hierarchies. Upper caste women, like the Nairs and Brahmins, could cover themselves, but for lower caste women, this was a privilege they had to pay for. Enter the Mulakaram, or breast tax, a degrading levy imposed on women as young as 14, calculated by the size of their breasts. It wasn't just about money, it was about control, humiliation, and reminding these women of their place in society. Tax collectors, known as parvathiars, would go door to door, inspecting women's bodies with no shame, demanding rice grains on a banana leaf as payment. If a woman couldn't pay, she faced public humiliation, forced to walk topless, or in some cases, execution. Yes, women were killed just for wanting to protect their dignity. This wasn't just a tax, it was a tool of oppression designed to break the spirit of entire communities. This system went on for decades, crushing the lives of countless women. But in the village of Cherthala, one woman decided enough was enough. Her name was Nangeli, and her story would ignite a fire that would burn through the heart of Travancore. Nangeli was an Ejava woman, a toddy tapper who worked tirelessly alongside her husband, Chirukandan, to survive in a world that offered them little. Like many in her community, she felt the weight of the breast tax, not just the financial burden, but the daily humiliation. The tax left families with barely enough rice to eat, and the constant threat of violence loomed over them. But Nangeli was different. She wasn't just angry, she was resolute. She decided she would no longer bow to this injustice. One day, the Parvathiar arrived at Nangeli's doorstep, expecting the usual payment. But Nangeli had other plans. She asked him to wait, went inside, and prepared 2 banana leaves. With a sharpened sickle, her tool from years of fieldwork, she made a decision that would echo through history. In a single, swift motion, she severed her own breasts, placing them on the banana leaves as her payment to the tax collector. Bleeding heavily, she handed the gruesome offering to the horrified official. Nangeli's act wasn't just defiance, it was a scream against centuries of oppression. Nangeli succumbed to her injuries, dying from excessive blood loss. Her husband, Chirukandan, overcome with grief, is said to have jumped into her funeral pyre, unable to bear the loss. Their childless home became a symbol of sacrifice, and the place where Nangeli lived is still known as Mulachiparambu, the land of the breasted woman. But her death was not in vain. It was the spark that lit a revolution. Nangeli's sacrifice sent shockwaves through Travancore. Women of the Nadar and Ejava communities, inspired by her courage, rose up in what became known as the Chanar Revolt, or Maru Marakal Samaram. From 1813 to 1859, these women fought for the right to cover their bodies, defying violence from upper caste men who burned schools and churches in retaliation. Christian missionaries, who saw the injustice, supported the cause, and many Nadar women converted to Christianity, wearing long cloths as a symbol of their newfound dignity. The fight wasn't easy. In 1813, Colonel John Monroe, the British Dewan, allowed Christian converts to wear upper cloths, But the Travancore court resisted, fearing it would blur caste lines. Violence erupted, and proclamations in 1828 and 1829 denied Nadar women the right to dress like higher caste women. But the women persisted. By 1858, tensions boiled over, and in 1859, under pressure from the Madras governor Charles Trevelyan, the King of Travancore finally issued a decree. All Nadar women could cover their breasts, though not in the style of higher caste Nayars. It was a partial victory, but a victory nonetheless. Nangeli's sacrifice wasn't just about one woman. It was about every woman who refused to be defined by oppression. Her act gave courage to thousands, proving that even in the face of death, one person's defiance can change the course of history. Today, Nangeli's story is both celebrated and debated. Some historians, like Manu Pillai, argue that the breast tax wasn't about breasts per se, but was a poll tax misnamed to distinguish female taxpayers. They question whether Nangeli's story is a legend, as it lacks primary historical records. But for many, especially in Kerala's Dalit and lower caste communities, Nangeli is a symbol of resistance against caste and gender oppression. Her story lives on in oral traditions, art, and even modern films like Pathan Patham Nutand and graphic novels like A Travancore Tale. While no official memorial stands in Cherthala, Nangeli's legacy endures in the hearts of those who fight for justice. Her sacrifice helped dismantle a barbaric system, paving the way for women in Travancore and later Cochin and Malabar to claim their right to dignity. Today, women in India honor Nangeli not just as a historical figure, but as a beacon of courage, reminding us that change often comes at a great cost. Nangeli's story teaches us that no injustice is too big to challenge. Her courage lives on in every woman who stands up against oppression in India and beyond. And her legacy asks us, what are we willing to fight for today? If Nangeli's story moved you, don't let it fade into history. Hit that like button to show your support for her legacy, and subscribe to our channel for more stories of unsung heroes who changed the world. Drop a comment below. Tell us what you think about Nangeli's courage, or share a story of resistance you've come across. And if you want to dive deeper into the history of the Travancore revolt, check out the links in the description for books, articles, and films that keep this story alive. Share this video with someone who needs to hear Nangeli's story, because her fight is our fight, and her voice still echoes today. Thank you for watching. Let's keep Nangeli's legacy alive together.